You are watching Frankly Speaking Sports, live from Charlotte, North Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, the other day I'm looking around and I'm saying, I need to become part of a Carolina Panthers group that stays positive even in these tough times. And I'll tell you what, boy, have I found a group, the Carolina Panthers Den. It's on Facebook and you need to join today. This is a group that stays positive, has a good time, and interacts with a lot of other different Carolina Panthers fans. If you want to have a great time and talk about your team, encourage your team in a way that is done very professionally, then become a member of the Carolina Panthers Den on Facebook. Make sure to join today. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Frankly Speaking Sports. And what a terrific show we have for you tonight. We're going to start off, obviously, with the disheartening and heartbreaking loss by the Carolina Panthers to the Washington football team yesterday. And then about 30 minutes from now, we're going to have legendary sports director, sportscaster, Ted Dawson on with us. And boy, oh boy, what a career this guy has had in sports. So this is definitely an interview you do not want to miss at all. And that'll be coming up, like I said, in about, I'm looking right here, in about 25 minutes, it looks like. 25 minutes, we'll have Ted Dawson on. But obviously, for all you folks that are here watching, first of all, I want to thank everybody on Facebook Live. Want to thank everybody on YouTube Live. Want to thank everybody on Twitter Live. Those are all the stations we are on, besides, of course, Tobacco Road Sports Radio, which we are on as well. So I want to thank you all for tuning in, watching our show tonight. For all of you folks that are currently on, if you can please do me a favor, it'll take you 1 second. Just hit the share button on your timeline and go ahead and share this to other people that might be interested in this great show as well. But we're going to go ahead. We're going to get it kicked off. If you want to leave some comments in the comment section in regards to yesterday's football game between the Panthers and the football team, please go ahead and do so. And we will try to get to those as quickly as we can. But, when you look at this game yesterday, everybody talked about the return of Cam Newton to Bank of America Stadium. They talked about Ron Rivera returning to Bank of America Stadium. And why not? That was the storyline. That was the headline. That was the thing everybody wanted to blow up. But what they forgot to do is also talk about two other guys that played a major role in yesterday's game, who both played at one time for the Carolina Panthers. And that was Taylor Heinecke and Joey Sly, both who've had a major role in yesterday's game. Obviously, Heinecke playing well the last two games, had a brilliant game for the Washington football team, throwing 3 touchdown passes. And Joey Sly, what can you say about him? He kicked a couple of field goals. They actually won by 6 points. He had 2 field goals and came back, to haunt them after they released him earlier in the season. But this was a game, when you look at this game, folks, and you know me, and I'm going to talk about some tough things here. So if you're a Panther fan and you want a realistical, hardcore, honest conversation about the Panthers and where the Panthers are at, then this is definitely the show that you want to watch tonight. And let me be honest with you. We'll talk about Cam Newton in a little bit, okay? And did Cam play well enough to lead this team to victory? We'll answer that in a few minutes. But on the opposite flip side of this, I have to say that the defense did not come to play yesterday. This defense had one of the poorest games it's played all year. Now, for all you fans out there that love to be bandwagon and just negative type fans out there, no, our defense does not suck. They do not suck. They had a bad game. Everybody has a bad game. Dante Jackson does not suck. He had a bad game. People have bad games. Even the greatest quarterback in the NFL, like people say Tom Brady, has a bad game. The greatest running back, Christian McCaffrey or Derrick Henry in today's game, they have bad games. This was a bad game all the way around. Washington, we talked about third down conversions, made 6 out of 13 third down conversions. I believe they were 2-2 on fourth down. But the big heartthrob here was there was a 3rd and 21. On third down, they get 18 yards, and then they go for it on fourth down and get the remaining 3 yards. Okay? Our rush defense was terrible yesterday, giving up 190 yards rushing. Washington ran the ball 40 times yesterday, and they averaged over, I think it was 7 yards per play. That's combining receiving and rushing together, averaging 5.7 yards. You're not going to win when your defense allows 5.7 yards per play. Antonio Gibson, 19 rushes, 95 yards, averaged 5 yards per carry on the ground. How about J.D. McKissick, 7 rushes, 46 yards for an average of 6.6 yards. Folks, our defense did not play well yesterday. Those things happen. Terry McLaurin, 5 receptions, 103 yards, 1 touchdown. Time of possession battle, and this is big. This is caused by 2 reasons, folks. Number one, your offense did not convert a lot on third down, which they didn't. We'll go over that in a minute. But it also means that the team that you're playing, whose offense is on the field, is converting a lot of third down conversions, which we talked about a couple of seconds ago. So what happens then? Then you have your defense on the line, on the field for a long period of time. They can't get fresh. They can't get energized. They can't get revitalized. And they continue to get tired out there on the field. And they played terrible, terrible defense. Taylor Heinecke, 16 of 22, 206 yards, 3 touchdown passes. Now, when you look at this game, and a lot of people are going to say, yes, our defense did not help us win this game. Now, when you look at the offense wasn't bad. It did enough to win, but I wouldn't say they were spectacular. I thought Cam Newton played a good game. I won't call it an unbelievable game, but he did enough to help the team win most of that game. If you look at that team and you look what Cam did yesterday, it was 21 of 27, 2 touchdowns, 189 yards passing, and then another 46 yards and a touchdown with his feet. Now, Not a bad game for Cam Newton, who did not know the entire playbook. And we will get to that in a minute. And believe me, I will get to that. But this was a game that, the offense, when you look at the offense, is more than Cam Newton. Couple of things I noticed yesterday. Offensive line continues to kill drives with unnecessary mistakes. Unnecessary. I thought overall, if you took the mistakes out of the game, the offensive line did a very good job. Unfortunately, these penalties come back to haunt you, and I think two of the holding penalties that we had stopped some decent runs by Christian McCaffrey that would have went for first downs. So they cost you in other ways. And then they break the momentum, and then you're out, 3 and out. This was not a great example by the offensive line from a penalty standpoint. But let's give kudos where kudos are deserved, folks. I don't understand why Brady Christensen doesn't play more. Okay, he's probably been showing the last couple of games when he does get in that he's one of the better offensive linemen on that team. Yet he doesn't start, and he continues to come in usually when somebody goes ahead and gets hurt. This is a guy that has to be in there a lot more if you want to win football games. Brady Christensen is a solution to a problem that you have on that offensive line. And why we don't cater to that offensive line and continue to work on it and fix it, I do not know. But at the end of the day, folks, offensive line overall, besides the penalties, did well, but the penalties were costly in this game. And then third down execution. We hear about third down execution. We talk about it week in, week out. We talked about how successful that Washington was yesterday. Unfortunately, the Panthers were not. Panthers 2 of 9 on third down, 1 of 3 on fourth down. And when you look at this team, folks, and you talk about the third down execution and this and that, it's something that you have to continue to run the right plays. Now, I'm going to tell you all, for those people out there, and I listen all over the place, whether it's on social media or on the radio. Okay, Cam's going to take a week or two to get ready. Cam is not a bad player. I hear people already saying, did we make a mistake? Did we make a mistake? No, we didn't make a mistake. Okay? The problem is a lot of the fans in the Carolina area, and I'm sorry if I upset you, but you're negative. You're completely negative, and it seems like you feed more off the negativism than you do the positive. You got Cam Newton. You're in a better situation than you were 2 weeks ago. Now it takes a little bit of time. Sure, we would love, hey, you know what? But there's going to be a couple of things I tell you on this show that you may not agree with, you may not like, and we're about to get into that. But there was a huge mistake yesterday. A huge mistake that you're not hearing much about in this game. You're not hearing enough about it, and it was made by Coach Matt Rhule. And a lot of people go, well, Larry, was it that punt that he didn't do and went for it on fourth down? No, that was not. You know what? When you look at that play on fourth down about Coach Rhule going for that, if you make it, you're the greatest thing in the world. If you miss it, you're the worst thing in the world. You can't win in that situation unless you make that play work. But at the end of the day, he made a call. I question whether he made the call based on what he wanted to do or was he trying to give in to the fans. And that's a whole nother sugar boggle we can talk about at another time. But that's not it. I'm going to let you listen to something, folks. I want everybody that's on to listen to what Matt Rhule says right here. And this is where the mistake, the biggest mistake could have been in yesterday's game. And I would love to get some feedback for everybody that's on. But let's hear what Coach Rhule said. Let me see if I can go ahead and pull this up and we'll listen to what Matt Rhule said.
Yeah, I mean, analytically, you should punt that ball. So, you still have 3 timeouts. Starting with punt the ball and then just, because Cam doesn't truly know the 2-minute, as well as like maybe he'd like. And
okay, folks, did you hear that? Did everybody hear what he just said? What did Coach Rhule just say? That we went ahead, we punted the football because one of our players, being Cam Newton, did not know the 2-minute offense well enough. So I have 2 questions. After that play, they ended up getting the football back. My question to Coach Rhule, you had a 2-minute offense going on. Why the hell was Cam Newton in that game during the 2-minute, with 2 minutes left in the game? You're running a 2-minute offense and he doesn't know. Now, no disrespect towards Cam Newton. Okay, he did a great job in that game, a very, very, adequate job in that game. But the coach just said, you all just heard it, that he did not know the 2-minute offense. He was inexperienced in it, and they didn't feel comfortable. So if you didn't feel comfortable, Coach Rhule, and you went ahead and went for it on 4th down, why the hell is he in there with 2 minutes left trying to get you down the field to win? What should have happened in that game, folks, and I'm sorry if you Panther fans get upset at me, but at the end of the day, I really don't care, okay? Because what should have been done on that play with 2 minutes left, with an inexperienced quarterback like Cam Newton, they said on the 2-minute drill, P.J. Walker should have been brought into that game to at least get them down to the 20-yard line. At that time, if P.J. brought him down to the 20-yard line and you wanted to bring Cam back in to try to get the ball in the end zone, that's fine. But at the end of the day, you have a guy in there, you just said it, who is inexperienced in our 2-minute offense, and you're not comfortable with him. Why did you not bring in P.J. Walker? That is one of the most absurd, stupid, ludicrous things I ever heard by a coach. A coach is saying he left in a guy that was not comfortable in that situation, and one that he was not comfortable with, and yet he keeps him in there. Stupid, stupid, stupid. I'm starting to think more and more as I get to know Matt Rhule is afraid of conflict. Matt Rhule is afraid of conflict. Why not just say, hey, listen, Cam, come here a minute. I want you to understand this. You are our quarterback. There's no if, and, or buts. But right now, you don't have enough experience in this 2-minute offense. I'm going to put BJ in to get us down to the 20-yard line. When he gets us down to the 20-yard line, we will make a decision then to put you back in to go ahead and get the ball in the end zone. That's all he had to say. Cam Newton wants to win. What, you think Cam wants to come out? No good athlete like Cam Newton wants to come out there. But at the end of the day, folks, you did not give your team a chance to win by doing that. You settled with Cam rather than doing what was best for your team. And that's a no-no by a coach in the NFL, and that's what Matt Rhule does. Matt Rhule needs to get a little cojones downstairs, if you know what I mean. He doesn't like to hold people accountable. We've seen it this year many, many times. What are the consequences? There is no consequences on this team. Now, you get a guy like Dante Jackson who didn't play well yesterday. You don't need consequences for that. That's one game that happens. I'm completely for that. But you get a coach earlier in the year, says he wants his offensive coordinator and told his offensive coordinator he wants to run this many times, and his coach continues not to do it. You have to wonder what the heck is going on with accountability. You got guys on the offensive line that week in, week out continue to get holding penalties, and nothing is done about it. They get to come back next week and play. That's when you pull their butts out of the game. You let them watch from the sideline. You coach, develop, and train them while you have Brady Christensen in there showing them the right way that it should be done. There has to be accountability. There has to be consequences. And if there's not, the same old crap's going to happen week in and week out. Okay? He has to face these guys face to face. He has to look at them and say, you're screwing up. Okay? You can't just wait for the films every week and tell these players this is what you did wrong. There has to be in-game coaching, it's called. That means you correct something as soon as it happens. You tell them what they did wrong, they fix it. If they continue to do it over and over again, you pull their butts from the game, put somebody else in there, and let them watch a little from the sidelines so that they can mentally understand what they are doing incorrectly. But as long as we have no accountability on this team, no consequences, and a coach that did not do what was best for his team in that 2-minute situation, that is hard to swallow. Now, if I'm wrong, fans, if I'm wrong, I don't care if you're watching live right now or if you're getting this on the replay, leave a message. I'm a big boy. You can tell me if I am wrong. If I am wrong, please tell me, okay? Our defense will be back, folks. It'll be back, and it'll probably be back next week, okay? They had a bad game. Don't get down on this defense. This defense is going to win you more games than it's going to lose. We definitely have to figure out this Russian defense and why so many guys are getting so many yards on us. Yesterday, give credit where credit is due. Taylor Heinecke, we got to know him. You all got to know him in Carolina a couple years ago. But the national media, the national attention with Taylor came versus the Buccaneers in that playoff game last year. We had an incredible game in a playoff loss. Probably played best quarterback out of any teams the Bucs played in the playoffs last year. Then you got this year, last week, he goes into plays Tampa Bay. He beats Tampa Bay. They upset him. And he comes down into Carolina and does the same thing. This is not a bad quarterback. You know, and I've been saying that for years. Now, I did not think this Washington football team was a very good football team before they played us. Yes, they beat Tampa Bay. Yes, they lost the 4 games before that. But, hey, they come to play. And we keep talking about it. If you watched those games yesterday in the NFL, folks, how many different teams won that you thought were not going to win yesterday? That's the NFL. On any given Sunday, Monday, Thursday night, whatever it is, any team can play any team and compete. That's why the NFL is so great. We got Miami next week. We're going to talk a lot about Miami coming up this Wednesday on Frankly Speaking Panthers beginning at 9 p.m. But, you know, don't think Miami's a pushover either, okay? There is no such thing as a pushover in the NFL, okay? We're not a pushover, and they're not a pushover. But at the end of the day, if we are going to start winning some football games here in Charlotte, there has to be accountability and there has to be appropriate consequences by the head coach of this football team to those players that are not producing on this team. We're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, folks, we are going to have the legendary Sportscaster sports director, Ted Dawson, on with us. Let's go ahead and take that break. You are watching Frankly Speaking Sports, live from Charlotte, North Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, the other day I'm looking around and I'm saying, I need to become part of a Carolina Panthers group that stays positive even in these tough times. And I'll tell you what, boy, have I found a group, the Carolina Panthers Den. It's on Facebook and you need to join today. This is a group that stays positive, has a good time, and interacts with a lot of other different Carolina Panthers fans. If you want to have a great time and talk about your team, encourage your team in a way that is done very professionally, then become a member of the Carolina Panthers Den on Facebook. Make sure to join today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Frankly Speaking Sports. I'm your host, Larry Frank, and what a show we've had so far, and it's about to get even better. As I want to introduce this gentleman here that we're going to introduce to you. He's been a sports director, a sportscaster over 50 years, has probably covered more sporting events than some of you years that some of you have been alive. I mean, he's covered Super Bowls, NBA championships, World Series, I think 7 different Olympics. Let's go ahead and welcome in Ted Dawson. Ted, how you doing tonight?
Good, Larry. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. There we go. We got you good there. All right, I'm just setting that up. Ted, let me ask you this. You covered the first Super Bowl ever. But before we get into that, I want to ask you this. Obviously, just like everything else in the world, the sportscasting, sports directing field has evolved in the last 50 years. Talk about the evolution of the, of sports reporting, and obviously with social media, technology, and all this stuff. It was a lot different when you first started, wasn't it?
Oh, obviously. I started, as a matter of fact, what is it, 50? I started today. Today is my anniversary. Because I was in the studio at the University of Utah for my very first day, the day that Kennedy was shot. So This is my very first, this is my anniversary of being a sportscaster. It started on this day. And when I was attending the University of Utah, so obviously it was a lot different. There was nothing not the social media that we have today. There was nothing certainly not the video, nothing that we have today. As a matter of fact, in my first job, which was in Dodge City, Kansas, we didn't even have video of any kind. We didn't have film. We didn't have anything. So I brought innovation to sportscasting in Kansas by having a audio tape recorder and an old what were those cameras that would give you instant pictures?
Polaroids.
Polaroid, yeah, Polaroid. And then I would pan the camera across the Polaroid pictures with an interview. An audio interview. So that's how I started sportscasting.
Now, Ted, isn't it true? I mean, I guess it goes without saying the fans of sports relied a lot more on the reporters like yourself to gather their information because there was no other way for them to gather that information.
Yeah, remember there were only 3 stations back in those days. It was just ABC, CBS, and NBC. So there wasn't all this that we have today. There wasn't Fox News. There wasn't all the cable stations, all that sort of thing. So it's interesting enough, in 1967, the first Super Bowl game, the NFL couldn't fill the Los Angeles Coliseum. So that's why they sent out invitations to every sportscaster in the country to come and cover the game. And that's how I ended up there.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. Talk about that first Super Bowl. Obviously, you said it wasn't a sellout. I believe, if I'm correct now, I was only 1 year old in 1967. But if I, from what I've heard about that game is in the LA area where you were from, it was actually blacked out in the LA area.
It was, yes.
Right.
But I was in Reno at the time. I was a sportscaster in Reno, Nevada. So we flew a private plane down. My news director, a fellow by the name of Bob Carroll, and I flew an airplane down, and we went to the Super Bowl at the Coliseum.
Now, talk about that experience, and what do you remember most about that day covering the Super Bowl?
Well, the thing I remember most is being in the locker room afterwards, because I was sitting next to the guy who was the San Francisco 49er broadcaster. And I'm terrible at names. I'm 78 years old now, so I'm terrible at names. But his son was his son is now a broadcaster, and he was the famous San Diego Charger quarterback who's now in the Hall of Fame. Anyway, I sat next to him and he asked me, would you like to go down to the locker room afterwards? And I said, sure. So we go down to the locker room, and Vince Lombardi had a rule. He didn't care who you were. He didn't let anybody into the locker room until they'd had the prayer and they'd talked after a game. So none of the CBS guys or none of the NBC guys, a lot of people don't realize the game was broadcast by both CBS and NBC. So none of their sportscasters or post-game interview guys could get into the locker room. But so I was at the front of the line, and they couldn't get in. CBS was interviewing Pete Rozelle outside. Vince Lombardi opened the door, and I got in. And so I was right in the front of the line. I was standing right next to Lombardi. The CBS came back from a commercial. They couldn't get in. So a CBS guy handed me the mic and said, here, boy, here, kid, you're on. And so that's how I ended up doing the post-game interviews for CBS.
That's great. Now, talk about, you've had the great experience of being a sportscaster and director in a large TV market area like LA and a small sports market area like Montana, which is more college sports and things like that. Talk about the major differences between the two. Which one did you
I made the complete circle, Larry. I started in Dodge City, Kansas, which is the smallest market in the country. And I ended up in Bozeman, Montana, which is maybe the second smallest market in the country. In the meantime, I was in places like Reno, Portland, Los Angeles, Dallas, Albuquerque, San Diego. Obviously, I couldn't keep a job. So that's really not the case. The case was that I kept moving around doing different things. So I had every bit as much fun in the small markets as I did in the large markets, because I always had the idea in my mind that their sports in Bozeman, Montana was just as important to them as the Dodgers were to the fans in Los Angeles. And they were. I mean, in Bozeman, Montana, the Montana State football game is every bit as important as the USC-UCLA game.
Oh, you there? Okay, there you go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I thought I lost you for a minute. I'm sorry. You know what? I want to ask you this because you've seen every single side of sportscasting, but it seems like the population of America, the fans of sports, they're more interested in getting a story that has negative implications than positive implications. Why do you?
I don't believe that. I believe the sports writers are more interested in a negative story, but I don't think the fans are.
Right, but why is that? Why is that, Ted?
I think That's just the nature of journalism, or the lack of journalism that we see today. In news reporting, they're way more interested in negative stories, and I always found that positive stories were fun. I always enjoyed doing the interesting story about the 7-year-old girl who was a great tennis player, or in one case, a 2-year-old who was a great golfer, kid by the name of Tiger Woods. So, I always look for those kind of stories.
Then let me ask you this. You've covered 27 Super Bowls, 18 NBA championships, 14 World Series, 7 Olympics. Talk about, I'm sure there's many, but if you had to pick the top 3 moments that you had covered in sports, what would they be?
Well, the first Super Bowl would certainly be there. The Lakers NBA championship over the Celtics, and the Dodgers beating the Yankees.
Those are 3 good ones. Yep. I remember those too. So, now, you also covered the Olympics. I know you were involved. I think it was the post game of the 1980 Olympics when.
Right. I did the post game interviews for the hockey game.
Talk about that moment when, I remember it like it was yesterday. First during the week, them beating the Russians. Then I think it was Finland they played that Saturday. We woke up early in the morning to watch that. Talk about that and what it was like to cover an event that a lot of people really didn't think the U.S. had any chance of winning.
Well, first of all, the U.S. tied their first game. So against, I don't remember who, Sweden, I think.
I think it was Sweden.
And it was like, this is not going to be very good. They just kept getting better and better and better. And I remember I talked to Mike Ruzioni after that game. I was the first one to talk to him, and it was like he was a little kid. They were such great kids. They were so much fun to deal with. And that was certainly one of the highlights of my career.
Yeah, with Herb Brooks, Ruzioni, Jim Craig, just to name a few. I
never had much dealings with Herb Brooks because he was just kind of above it all.
Yeah. Now, first of all, let me ask you this. What are you doing nowadays? Are you just retired now?
Just retired? I'm raking leaves in my backyard. That's what my wife had me doing today.
Now, do you still root for Los Angeles teams? Or,
I'm sorry?
Who do you root for now? Are you still a Los Angeles fan?
Jerry Jones and I have always been friends. I broadcast the Cowboys. So the Cowboys are really, I root for them. The Dodgers, the Angels. So, yeah, Lakers.
Right now, Dallas.
But everything is so different now. There used to be a real intimate relationship with the players. And I don't think I can do it now because the players don't care. They have their own, the players are their own sportscasters. They have their own media market. So they don't need us. So,
that's a shame.
There's no reason. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and I were very close friends, and I got to know him, know what kind of person he was. Muhammad Ali and I were very close friends. That wouldn't happen today.
Now, Ted, do you think these players, whatever sport it is, you think they use social media too much and that it's a bad thing for them to continue to use it?
Oh, I don't know that it's a bad thing. It probably works for them. But I just know I wouldn't like it.
Right, because now you're finding out stories through Twitter or through, Facebook or whatever before they even get to the, that's how the media is finding out a lot of these things rather than, the old traditional way.
Well, again, I just know that the intimate relationship I had with players, the fact we could sit and talk about their families, we can talk about their dreams, their aspirations, and I can talk about mine. I can talk about my hometown and their hometown, and that meant a lot to me. And you just don't have that today.
No, but you said a lot of World Series. Talk about the Dodgers when they did play the Yankees and won that one you're talking about that you covered. I mean, the Yankees-Dodgers used to be what was it, Billy Martin, Tommy Lasorda, I believe, the two managers. What was that like covering that?
All right, I'm sorry, but there's something in the background. I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said, what was it like covering the Dodgers during the World Series?
The Dodgers were interesting. Tommy Lasorda and I didn't get along. He didn't like me, and I didn't particularly like him. He was kind of a weird guy. If he thought you were Frank Sinatra or someone who could do something for him, then he was your best buddy. If not, he was kind of a backstabber. So he and I never got along that well. So I was not close to him, but I certainly was close to a lot of the players who also were not close to him.
Were you close to Pat Riley?
Very close. Yes. Remember, Pat Riley was a sportscaster before he became the head coach.
Yes. Now, was he in LA too when he was a sportscaster?
Yeah, he was the color guy for the Lakers.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. See, now you're going back.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. So let me ask you this. You've covered so many things. You've done so many things. If you had to do it all over again, anything that you would change?
Not a thing. And I made a lot of mistakes, but I would not change a thing. I would not give up my time in small markets for 30 years in Los Angeles. I wouldn't, because I loved small market TV. I love big market TV. I would not change one thing.
Doesn't small market, Ted, get you the ability to go out of the studio and experience more things that you might not experience?
You're the boss. At ABC, I had 7 people looking over my shoulder. In a small market, I'm my own boss. I can do what I want.
Right. So that made a big difference.
Yes, huge difference.
Well, listen, my friend, I want to thank you so very, very much for taking your time out of your schedule to come on Frankly Speaking Sports tonight.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
Stay safe and have a great Thanksgiving.
God bless.
You too. That was Ted Dawson, legendary sportscaster out of Los Angeles, Nevada, Montana, all these different places. Great to catch up with him this evening. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to open it up for discussion, folks. We got about 15 minutes when we come back. This is your time to get on the air, to go ahead and leave a comment if you'd like to talk Panther football. If you don't want to talk Panther football, you don't have to talk Panther football. But if you want to, we'll be here for you. We'll be right back after this message. You are watching Frankly Speaking Sports, live from Charlotte, North Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, the other day I'm looking around and I'm saying, I need to become part of a Carolina Panthers group that stays positive even in these tough times. And I'll tell you what, boy, have I found a group, the Carolina Panthers Den. It's on Facebook and you need to join today. This is a group that stays positive, has a good time, and interacts with a lot of other different Carolina Panthers fans. If you want to have a great time and talk about your team, encourage your team in a way that is done very professionally, then become a member of the Carolina Panthers Den on Facebook. Make sure to join today. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking Sports. I'm your host, Larry Frank. First of all, thank Ted Dawson for coming on our show tonight. What a great interview. 78 years old, over 50 years in the broadcasting industry. We also want to thank everybody on Facebook, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, Tobacco Road Sports Radio, all of you for being on, joining us tonight. We're going to update a couple of quick things for you here as I pull it up here. So bear with me a second while I get some scores for you. We definitely want to, first of all, go ahead and update you. It is halftime in Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers and the Giants. The Buccaneers are beating the Giants 17-10 right now. It looks like at halftime. Daniel Jones, 11 of 16, one touchdown pass. Tom Brady, 20 of 29, 198 yards, one touchdown pass, and one interception. So the Giants, just like they did last year, are holding it close versus the Buccaneers, 17-10. Let's go ahead and for you Charlotte Hornet fans, the final score, your Charlotte Hornets have defeated the Wizards 109-103. As we look at the stats, Terry Rozier, 32 points, 8 of 11 from three-point range, 2 rebounds, 4 assists. LaMelo Ball, 28 points, 3 from 9 from three-point, 13 rebounds, 7 assists, and 3 steals. So a great game. Gordon Hayward also pumped in 16 points. So a great job by your Charlotte Hornets, who I believe now moved to 11-8 on the season. So a great win by the Charlotte Hornets. We got about 10 minutes left in the show. For those of you folks that are listening, that are on different platforms, this is your time, the last 10 minutes. Monday night, we open it up so that you can leave comments, and I will get to those comments and answer those comments. We'd love to talk to you about the Carolina Panthers. What do you think? What do you think you're going forward? And when you look at this team going forward, they got Miami next week. I believe they have a bye. Then I know we play, who is it? New Orleans, Tampa Bay twice, and I think Atlanta. So when you look at this game, and right now, depending on what Tampa Bay does today, we are still in the thick of things when it comes to the playoffs. Now, I know we don't want to talk playoffs. We're not playing well enough to even be considered a playoff team right now. But at the end of the day, when you look at the NFL and you look at the standings, if the season was to end today, let me see if I have it. Carolina would not make it. New Orleans and Minnesota have 5 wins, as does Carolina. So Carolina is looking on the outside in, but the good news is they have as many wins as the second and third wild card seeds. So basically what has to happen here, folks, you got to go into these ball games and you got to win. We could say all day long that we should beat Miami, but we said all week long we should beat Washington. You never know. They're going to have to go in there and play good football. This Miami team is not just going to lay over. They got Tua. They got some good players on that team. So it's going to be another tough game. Not only that, this game is on the road. It's in Miami. So this is going to be a tough game. The good news for the Carolina Panthers is that they play well for some reason on the road and not the greatest when it comes to playing at home, as I will check on that. I want to go over the rest of this schedule with you. Let me see if I can, I'm trying to pull it up. Let's see if I can pull that up right now. Carolina Panthers. So we'll go ahead and pull up the schedule, and we'll give you the exact schedule as we look at it. It's 1:00 p.m. They are playing December 12th. November 28th, they play the Dolphins. That's this upcoming Sunday, 1:00 p.m. Then we got a bye week. So if we beat Miami, we go into the bye week 6-6. Not terrible, not great, because there's quite a few games we should have won, but you can't look back. Then you come back from the breaks and have a tough game in Orchard Park, New York, where you play the Bills. So the Panthers will play the Bills, followed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here in Carolina. Then you got the Saints away and the Buccaneers away to wrap up the season. So, folks, if you look at this realistically, let's just say realistically, okay, if this team plays up to its capability, is it safe to say in the last, what are we? We are 5-6, so we got 6 games left. Is it safe to say this team can go 3-3? If they go 3-3, that would be an 8-9 season. I don't know if that's enough to get them to the playoffs. But if you take the one Bills game, or you take the 2 Buccaneer games, and you can just split with the Buccaneers, now you're 9-8. A lot can happen in this last 6 games. Can't believe I'm saying there's only 6 games left on the season here already in the NFL. Season just goes by quicker and quicker and quicker. But, a couple things go the right way. And this Carolina Panther team, which does have the ability, and I will say that again, folks, we haven't seen it, but they have the ability to really be solid on both sides of the football. They can put it together, get Cam, more into this offense, understanding it from a knowledge standpoint and a play calling standpoint. You never know what can happen the rest of the season. There have been many teams that have done this, what they are doing. But if you go 6-6 after the break, okay, then you have 5 games left. You basically got to win 3 of those 5 to get in the playoffs. By no means is it going to be easy, but you know what? I always say this, folks, year after year after year. Get to the playoffs. The playoffs, it becomes a new season. And I always say the team playing the best football going into the playoffs is usually the team that prevails. Good example, Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. After week 13, ran it out and beat everybody in the playoffs. I'm not saying that by no means is this team should even be thinking anything else but the game this Sunday. If you take one game at a time, only thing they should be thinking about is the Miami Dolphins going to Miami and defeating them and being 6-6. Then you got, 2 weeks to prepare for the Buffalo Bills. 2 weeks. It gets harder after next week, folks. Not easier. It's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot of improving, a lot of great work from the defense, a lot of execution from the offense to keep this season going. But it has to, forget about what happened. Forget yesterday. Forget the previous part of this year. The new year starts today. This Sunday, you play Miami. You have a 6-game schedule left. Your job is to win as many of these 6 games as possible by looking at one game at a time. Only game we look at is Miami. What do we need to do to beat the Miami Dolphins? And we'll talk more about that on, Frankly Speaking, Panthers coming up Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time right here on your Frankly Speaking Sports Network. But that's all. Think about one game at a time. Dante Jackson, one of the fans says, do you think they should bench Dante Jackson? No. What are you? Are you an idiot? Come on. Guy has one bad game. If Tom Brady has one bad game, he's sitting his butt down? No. Guys, These are the players on your team. You got to continue to enjoy watching them and rooting for them. Every time they have a bad game, you can't say, let's get rid of them. What? Cam Newton has a bad game next week, you're going to say, get rid of him? Okay? Is that what Carolina fans are all about? No. You shouldn't be. And if you are, that's a sad excuse for a fan. Okay? We're going to grow with this team. This team's going to get better. Our defense had a terrible game. They will bounce back. Don't be surprised if they come back with a vengeance this upcoming Sunday in Miami. But the offense also, if you're not comfortable with Cam yet, then Cam can't play. And I have nothing against Cam. He was brought here to play. But he's got to know the ins and outs of this offense. And it's only been 10 days, so no discredit to Cam. But like I said, he should have never been in that 2-minute offense at the end of the game if, like Coach Rhule said in his press conference, that he was not comfortable with the inexperience of Cam running that offense. A big, big mistake by Coach Matt Rhule. Hopefully they work on that, and I wouldn't be surprised if they work on that this week, that 2-minute offense. But, you know, you got a lot of weapons on offense here. Cam has a lot to work with, a lot more than he had in New England. And I think as he progresses, starting with this Sunday, and then that 2 weeks off is going to be the key for Cam. They got to win this one in Miami. Then after that, they have 2 weeks to get Cam ready for Buffalo. And believe me, that's going to be where you really get to see what Cam Newton can do being back here in Charlotte. Okay? You know, he's been here 10 days. They're traveling some now. You know, he really, you know, they went to Arizona. This week they were home. A big hoopla of everybody returning to Charlotte. Then next week they're in Miami. They'll come back from Miami, have 2 weeks to prepare with Buffalo, and hopefully the Cam Newton we see in Buffalo is going to be the Cam Newton that we all wanted to see coming back to Carolina Panthers. Ladies and gentlemen, want to remind you tomorrow night, myself and Zach McKinnell will be on the Frankly Speaking Sports Network with College Football Tuesday. Lots and lots to talk about as the season is wrapping up. The new poll, the championship poll will be out to see the top 4 teams for the playoff poll, I should say. Also, we'll be talking about Dan Mullen and him being let go by the Florida Gators, plus all the recaps, previews of last week's game, these upcoming games. Just a lot to go over on our College Football Tuesday show tomorrow. Then Wednesday night, Thanksgiving Eve, Frankly Speaking Panthers, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll preview the upcoming game we just talked about in Miami between your Carolina Panthers and the Miami Dolphins. On behalf of all of us here on Frankly Speaking Sports, we want to wish you a very, very happy Thanksgiving. For those of you that may not be joining us, hopefully you'll join us the next couple nights. But if not, have a great, great Thanksgiving and be safe. Good night.